I still remember the night it all began. The rain hadn't stopped for hours and the sound of thunder echoed through the narrow streets of my neighborhood. I had just finished another long shift at the precinct, exhausted and soaked to the bone when my phone started vibrating inside my pocket. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end was trembling with anger. "Officer Daniel, this is your landlord. You're 3 days late on rent. I'm giving you one more warning, pay up or I'm calling the police." For a moment I didn't know whether to laugh or feel insulted. He had no idea who he was talking to. I was the police. But instead of correcting him, I stayed silent for a few seconds. His voice cracked through again, sharper this time. "Did you hear me? You've been living here for months and I'm done with your excuses. I want my money by tomorrow or you're out. I don't care who you think you are." Then he hung up. I stood there in the hallway staring at the flickering light above my door. Something about his tone wasn't normal. It wasn't just anger, it was fear, desperation, and I'd been paying rent regularly. In fact, I'd transferred last month's payment 2 weeks early, so why was he saying I had? When I walked into my apartment, something felt off. The air smelled different, faintly like cigarette smoke. I didn't smoke. I turned on the lights and froze. The photo frames on my wall had been shifted slightly, my drawer was half open, and my service badge, the one I kept locked inside, was gone. My heart started pounding. This wasn't a simple rent issue. Someone had been inside my home. I immediately called the landlord back, but he didn't answer. I checked my emails, rent receipts, and payment history. Everything was there, on record, verified, so what was going on? By morning, I decided to visit him in person. His house was only a few blocks away, an old brick building he rented out to half a dozen tenants, including me. When he opened the door, his expression changed the moment he saw me. "What do you want?" he snapped. I tried to stay calm. "We need to talk about last night. You said I hadn't paid rent." "You haven't," he interrupted, pointing his finger at me, "and you broke into your own apartment after I changed the locks." I froze. "You changed the locks?" "Yes," he barked. "I told you yesterday, no rent, no entry. You think being a cop gives you the right to trespass." That's when it clicked. Someone was trying to make me look guilty, someone who wanted me out of that apartment fast. I kept my voice steady. "Mr. Cole, I have receipts, you know that I paid." He crossed his arms, smirking. "Then show the receipts to the officers when they get here. I already called them." My phone buzzed again, a message from dispatch, report of tenant trespassing and refusing eviction. Suspect name, Daniel Ross. My own department, my own name, my own landlord had just reported me. I could have cleared everything up with one call, but something deep inside told me to stay quiet. I wanted to see how far this would go. Why was my landlord desperate enough to fake all this? Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up. 2 young officers got out, both from my unit. The moment they saw me, confusion washed over their faces. "Sir, you're the suspect?" one asked. I nodded slightly, apparently. The landlord stepped forward, waving his hands dramatically. "That's him. He broke in last night. I told you, he's been threatening me for weeks." The younger officer looked at me, silently asking for direction. I gave him a small nod to play along. I wanted to see the full story unfold. After taking our statements, they left, promising to file a report. I watched Mr. Cole's hands shake as he lit another cigarette. He was hiding something, and I intended to find out what. That night, I sat inside my car across the street, watching his house through the rain. Around 1 a.m., the lights in his basement turned on. I adjusted my rearview mirror and zoomed in with my small camera lens. He wasn't alone. Someone else was there, tall, wearing a hood, handing him a black duffel bag. My instincts screamed drug deal, but it didn't look like that. The way he handled the bag, careful, almost protective, told me it was something more personal. When the hooded man left, Mr. Cole walked to the back of the building and opened a rusted storage door. He went inside and didn't come out for nearly 20 minutes. When he did, he was sweating and shaking. He looked up and down the street before disappearing back inside. I decided to check it out the next morning. I had the spare key for the tenant storage area. As I stepped inside, the smell of damp wood filled the air. The lights flickered and water dripped from the ceiling, but what I found behind one of the metal shelves made my skin crawl. There was a box labeled with my name, Daniel Ross. Inside it, I found photos, Dozens of them. Photos of me entering and leaving my apartment, talking to neighbors, even one of me asleep through my window. Every single picture had a timestamp and a note beneath it. Unstable, dangerous, keep under watch. My stomach twisted. Someone had been documenting me, not just stalking, profiling. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind me. I turned, but it was too late. Something heavy struck the back of my head. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was in my apartment, lying on the floor. My head throbbed and the clock said 3:40 a.m. My front door was wide open, and sitting on my kitchen counter was my missing badge neatly placed beside a note that read, "Stop asking questions." The next morning, I went to the precinct pretending everything was normal. I couldn't report it, not yet. If someone inside the department was involved, going public could destroy my career. I started digging into Mr. Cole's background. He wasn't just a landlord. He'd been arrested years ago for fraud, identity theft, and illegal property deals, but every charge had mysteriously disappeared from the system. Records sealed, names missing. Someone was protecting him. That night, I went back to his building. All the tenants' doors were shut tight, but one old lady across the hall opened hers when she saw me. Her eyes darted nervously toward Mr. Cole's unit. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "He doesn't like people asking about the basement." "What's in the basement?" I asked softly. She looked down. "He says it's for maintenance, but sometimes I hear crying." Crying, my skin turned cold. I thanked her and walked quietly down the corridor. The basement door was locked again, but this time I noticed fresh marks near the handle like it had been opened recently. I picked the lock and stepped inside. It smelled like bleach and rust. The single light bulb above me flickered weakly. I moved deeper and then I heard it. A faint sob. "Hello," I called out. No response. Just quiet crying from behind a locked door at the far end. I slowly turned the handle, locked, but I could hear breathing on the other side. "Please," a voice whispered. "He'll come back soon, don't let him see you." It was a woman's voice, trembling with fear. Before I could speak, footsteps echoed above, the sound of boots moving fast. I stepped back into the shadows as the basement door opened. Light flooded in and there he was, Mr. Cole, holding a flashlight and a crowbar. He muttered something under his breath and approached the locked room. I hid behind the pipes, heart pounding. He knelt, unlocked the door and whispered to whoever was inside, "You talk again and I'll make you regret it." Then he left, slamming the door shut. After he was gone, I waited 5 minutes before stepping out. I unlocked the door and opened it carefully. Inside, a woman in her 20s was sitting on the floor, her wrists bruised, her eyes wide with terror. She looked up at me. "You're not with him." "No," I said softly, "I'm here to help." Her story came out in broken sentences. She had rented the same apartment I was in months before me, but when she found out about his fake leases and illegal rent scams, he locked her in the basement to keep her quiet. He'd used her identity to apply for multiple housing loans and evictions, all under different names. My name had been next on his list. He wasn't just a landlord, he was running a full-scale scam network using fake tenants, fake police reports, and forged payment histories. When I found out she'd been trapped there for weeks, something in me snapped. I called in backup quietly from my personal line, a friend from another district I could trust. We set a trap that night. But before help could arrive, everything went wrong. At around 2 a.m., the power in the building went out. The emergency lights flickered red and the air grew heavy. I heard footsteps running upstairs, followed by a scream. When I reached the hallway, the old lady's door was open and she was gone. Blood smeared the floor leading toward the basement. I rushed down the stairs, my flashlight cutting through the dark. The woman I'd rescued was gone too. And then a familiar voice echoed through the basement, calm, cold, and mocking. "Didn't I tell you to stop asking questions, Officer Ross?" Mr. Cole stood at the far end, holding something metallic in his hand. He smiled, eyes gleaming with hatred. "You think you're the only one who knows how to play detective," he said. "You've been inside my trap since the day you moved in." Before I could react, he flipped a switch on the wall and the sound of heavy locks snapping into place surrounded me. The basement door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed everything. And then I realized there were footsteps behind me, not his, someone else, someone I hadn't seen before. A whisper brushed against my ear. "He told us you, come, welcome home, officer." The light flickered once more, revealing two masked figures standing between me and the exit. My hand reached for my gun, but it was gone. The sound of their breathing grew louder. Then silence. Only the soft hum of the single bulb above, swinging slowly. And in that silence, I knew one thing for sure: this wasn't just about rent anymore. It was personal. The silence in that basement was unbearable. My breath echoed off the damp walls, and the faint hum of that swaying light bulb sounded like a countdown. Two masked figures stood between me and the door, their faces hidden beneath cheap black fabric. One of them carried my gun, the same weapon that had been holstered on my belt earlier that night. "How did you get that?" I demanded, my voice steady even though my pulse was racing. Neither of them answered. The taller one stepped forward, raising the gun slowly, his hands shaking slightly. I could tell from his stance he wasn't trained, not law enforcement, not military, probably just someone desperate following orders. I took a step closer. "You don't want to do this," I said calmly. "He's using you. Whatever he promised you, money, freedom, he'll never keep his word." The other figure flinched, almost as if they believed me for a second, but before I could move further, the basement door creaked open above. A flashlight beam sliced through the darkness. Mr. Cole's voice echoed down the stairs. "Enough talking," he growled. "Do it now." The taller one turned toward him, hesitating. That moment was all I needed. I lunged forward, grabbing his wrist and twisting it hard. The gun clattered to the ground. The second figure tried to pull me back, but I shoved him into a metal shelf, sending boxes crashing. I snatched my gun, pointed it toward the stairs, but Mr. Cole was already gone. I ran after him, but when I reached the hallway, the lights flickered back on, every bulb glowing unnaturally bright. The entire building was silent, not a single sound from the tenants, doors locked, curtains drawn. I knew I couldn't chase him blindly. I needed to secure the evidence first. I called my trusted contact, Detective Harris, a friend from another precinct who'd helped me before on internal affairs cases. "Harris, it's Ross," I whispered. "I'm sending you an address. I need backup quietly, no official dispatch, no local involvement. This landlord's involved in something big, a possible human trafficking, identity fraud, and maybe police corruption." His tone shifted immediately. "Copy that, I'll pull a team off duty, ETA 30 minutes, stay safe." 30 minutes felt like forever. I searched the building room by room. Every tenant's door was locked, but I noticed something strange: all their mailboxes were empty. Not just unread, completely cleared out. In one of the corners, I found a stack of old eviction letters, but the names were all different: fake tenants, fake IDs, and every single lease had the same signature at the bottom: Cole. It was his operation. He'd been creating fake tenants, renting out imaginary apartments, and using those residents to apply for subsidies and government property programs. Then, when real people like me moved in, he made them disappear and replaced them with new identities. He wasn't a landlord, he was a ghost dealer selling lives that didn't exist. I heard a soft creak behind me. I spun around, gun raised. It was the old woman, the same tenant who'd warned me before. She looked pale, trembling, her eyes wide with terror. "He's gone mad," she whispered. "He said you ruined everything. He's going to burn it all." "Where is he now?" I asked. "In the back shed," she said. "He's pouring something, gasoline, I think." I rushed outside. The rain had stopped, but smoke was rising near the backyard. The faint smell of fuel filled the air. I moved quietly along the fence line, flashlight off, listening. Mr. Cole's voice drifted through the dark. "All these years building this empire, and one cop thinks he can take it away from me." I could see him now, kneeling near a large pile of documents, files, and black duffel bags. He was holding a lighter. "Drop it, Cole," I said, stepping forward. He froze, then turned slowly, smiling. "You think this will stop me? You don't even know who you're really fighting." He flicked the lighter open, and for a moment I thought he'd throw it. But instead he tossed it aside and reached into his jacket, pulling out a small flash drive. "You want the truth?" he said. "Here it is, everything you think you know about this city. It's built on lies. I'm just a messenger." Before I could respond, headlights swept across the yard. Harris's car, backup had arrived. Cole cursed, dropped the drive into the fire and ran toward the alley. I chased him, mud splashing beneath my boots. We ran through the narrow backstreets past flickering streetlights and shuttered shops. He was fast for a man his age, fueled by pure panic. I caught up near an old warehouse and tackled him to the ground. We struggled in the rain-soaked dirt until he stopped resisting, panting heavily. "You don't get it, do you?" he hissed. "You think I'm the villain, but I'm cleaning up after the real monsters." "Who?" I demanded. He smiled weakly. "Ask your department." Before I could press him, Harris's team arrived. They cuffed him, secured the area, and put out the small fire near the shed. The documents were mostly destroyed, but a few half-burned pages remained, enough to piece together fragments of his operation. One line caught my eye: "Asset reports sent to Precinct Division 4. Division 4 was my division. I looked at Harris. "You see this?" He nodded grimly. "You think someone inside knew?" "I think someone inside made it happen," I replied. Cole was taken into custody, screaming about names and files and people who don't exist. I didn't know if he was insane or telling the truth, but something about his words lingered in my mind. Back at the precinct, I tried to file the report, but the moment I entered his name into the system, the computer froze. When it restarted, his entire record had vanished. Every file, every image, gone. It was as if he'd never been arrested. When I went to evidence lockup, the bag containing his personal items was missing too. The officer on duty looked confused. "We don't have any record of a Mr. Cole in custody," he said. "Are you sure you brought him in here?" I stared at him. "I cuffed him myself." He just shrugged. "Maybe check with Division 4, they handle landlord complaints sometimes." The way he said it, Division 4, made my skin crawl. When I left the building, Harris called. "Ross, something's wrong. The transfer logs for Cole disappeared from our database." My team, saying he never made it to the station. I stopped walking. "What do you mean never made it?" "He vanished," Harris said. "Car cameras show him in the backseat, then halfway through the route, blackout. Next frame, he's gone, doors locked, no signs of a break. He just disappeared." For the first time in years, I felt fear crawl up my spine. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside felt amplified, every creak, every gust of wind. I checked my windows twice, my locks 3 times. Around 3 a.m., I noticed a car parked across the street, lights off, engine silent. It had been there for hours. I grabbed my gun and stepped outside quietly. As I approached the car, the driver's window rolled down an inch. A voice came from inside, calm, familiar, and cold. "Officer Ross, you were told to stop asking questions." I froze. "Who are you?" No answer. The car sped off, tires screeching against the wet pavement. The next morning, I found something under my windshield wiper, a manila envelope. Inside were photos of me again, but these were recent, taken last night. One of them even showed me standing at my own window, phone in hand. At the bottom of the pile was a small note: "You're one of us now, don't resist." I knew what that meant. They wanted to turn me into one of their fake identities, erase who I was, replace me with a ghost. I called Harris again, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I drove to his apartment, only to find it completely empty. No furniture, no clothes, not even his name on the lease. It was as if Detective Harris had never existed. That's when I realized the depth of this thing. Cole wasn't just a fraudster, he was part of something that could erase entire people, from records, from systems, from reality itself. I went back to my apartment and tore through every drawer looking for any clue I'd missed. Then I found it hidden inside the base of my lamp. A small drive, identical to the one Cole tried to burn. I plugged it into my laptop, praying it still worked. The files loaded slowly, encrypted but accessible. Dozens of folders named after addresses across the city. Inside each folder were tenant records, ID scans, and photos, all fake. But one folder caught my eye: Project Tenant Alpha. I opened it and froze. Inside was a file labeled Daniel Ross. My photo, my signature, my badge number, everything about me except the creation date was 2 years before I ever rented that apartment. They had created me. Every memory, every record, every official document I thought was real, could it all have been planted? I couldn't breathe. A noise outside snapped me out of it. Someone was at my door. I shut the laptop and drew my gun. A quiet knock followed, then another slightly louder. "Officer Ross," a woman's voice said, "it's me, the girl from the basement, please open up." I hesitated, then opened the door slightly. She stood there, soaked from the rain, her face pale. "They're coming," she whispered. "He wasn't lying, it's bigger than you think. They don't just erase people, they replace them." "What do you mean?" I asked. She looked over her shoulder nervously. "They take people who won't obey and put new ones in their place. Clones, doubles, I don't know what they are, but I saw them. They're using that basement to test something." I wanted to believe she was paranoid, delusional from trauma, but the fear in her eyes was too real. "Why come to me?" I asked. "Because you're next," she said, voice trembling. "They already have your copy." Before I could react, a black van turned the corner and stopped in front of the building. The doors flew open and men in dark uniforms poured out. Not police, private security, no insignia, no IDs. She grabbed my arm. "We have to go now." We ran through the back exit, across the alley, and into the maze of streets. The sound of boots echoed behind us. I could hear them calling my name, not hers. "Daniel Ross, come quietly." They didn't want to kill me, they wanted to take me. We ducked into an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the block. My phone buzzed with a single message from an unknown number. "Stop running, we just want to talk." Then another message, a live photo of me and the woman taken seconds ago. They were watching us. She was trembling, staring at me with wide eyes. "You still think this is about rent?" she whispered. "They own everything here, the buildings, the people, even the cops." I didn't know what to say. For the first time, I had no control, no badge, no backup, no truth I could rely on. Outside, engines roared, flashlights cut through the fog. I tightened my grip on my gun, took a deep breath, and whispered to her, "We're not running anymore." She looked terrified. "Then what are we doing?" I glanced at the flickering lights outside and whispered, "We're taking the fight back to them." The warehouse door rattled violently as someone tried to break in. The next second, glass shattered, boots hit concrete, and voices yelled commands, orders, chaos. I raised my weapon and fired once into the dark. And then everything went silent again. When the dust settled, I realized something horrifying. The people lying on the ground weren't strangers. They were wearing my face. For a moment, I couldn't move. The flashlight rolled across the floor, its beam landing on one of the faces staring blankly back at me. It was me, same hair, same scar above the eyebrow, even the same badge number stitched into the uniform. The woman beside me gasped, stepping backward until she hit the wall. "I told you," she whispered, "they already made you." I crouched beside one of the bodies. The skin was too perfect, almost plastic under the dim light. I pressed my fingers against the neck, no pulse, just a faint mechanical hum, a synthetic heart. These weren't people, they were replicas. Footsteps echoed from above, more were coming. "Move," I told her, grabbing her hand. We slipped through a side corridor, running past broken crates and rusted equipment until we found an old stairwell leading down. The air grew colder with each step, heavy with the smell of metal and burnt oil. When we reached the bottom, the sight stopped me cold. Rows of metal pods lined the room, glowing faint blue from within. Inside each one was a figure, motionless, identical copies of people I'd seen in the neighborhood. The tenants, the mailman, even the old woman from the hall, all duplicates. One pod near the corner flickered erratically. Through the glass, I saw another me, still, eyes closed, breathing slow. My mind screamed to make sense of it, but nothing did. The woman grabbed my arm. "They said it's for control. They replace the ones who ask questions, make perfect versions that obey." I turned to her. "Then why keep the originals alive?" "They don't," she whispered, "not for long." I moved closer to the pod holding my copy. The name tag on the base read, Unit DR03. There were others, DR01, DR02, each an earlier version. My stomach turned. The loudspeaker crackled overhead and a calm voice echoed through the basement. "Officer Ross, step away from the subjects. You're trespassing in a government-controlled research site." The woman clutched my sleeve. "They found us." The voice continued. You've seen too much, but we can still make this easy. Surrender and we'll correct your memory. You'll wake up tomorrow as if none of this ever happened. I aimed my gun at the ceiling. Who are you? No answer, just the low hum of the pods. I turned back to the woman. We need evidence, something we can take out of here. She nodded and pulled a small device from her pocket, a portable scanner. I took this from Cole's office. It records internal system data. If we plug it into their control terminal, we can copy everything. We found the main console, a large steel unit covered in blinking lights and cables. She connected the device and data began to transfer. The timer read 3 minutes. 3 minutes felt like a lifetime. Above us, I could hear the elevator descending. Boots on metal, voices barking orders. Faster, I said. She didn't answer, just worked quicker, fingers trembling. The bar reached 80% when a gunshot shattered the silence. Sparks flew from the wall beside her head. We dove for cover. Armed men in black armor stormed the room, visors reflecting the cold blue light of the pods. Their leader stepped forward, not Cole, not anyone I'd seen before. He wore a pristine white coat and smiled calmly. So this is the famous Officer Ross. I was hoping you'd see the truth before your copy was activated. Who the hell are you? I shouted. He walked closer. Director Manson, head of Division 4. My heart stopped. Division 4, the same division I work under. He nodded. Correction worked. You were never one of us. You were our test. Cole was just a handler managing the environment. I gritted my teeth. You're lying. He tilted his head, almost amused. Am I? You ever wonder why no one remembers your first year in the department? Why your file starts abruptly after a transfer no one can explain? I tried to think, tried to recall faces, names, anything from those early days, but all I could see were flashes like broken film. Manson smiled wider. You were our success story, Daniel, a synthetic officer with human memory implants, perfect loyalty, perfect obedience, but then something went wrong. You started remembering who you really were. The woman screamed, he's not one of you. He ignored her. The human mind is unpredictable. It clings to pieces of truth. You began acting like a real cop, investigating, asking questions, feeling guilt. We had to shut the experiment down. I shook my head. No, I'm real. Manson sighed softly. Look around you, you're surrounded by your failures. He snapped his fingers. The pods began to open, steam hissing into the air. The figures inside stepped out one by one, expressionless, moving in sync, all wearing my face. Take them, he ordered. Gunfire erupted. I ducked behind the console, returning fire, hitting 2 of the synthetic officers. They fell but didn't stay down. Wires sparked where blood should have been. The woman finished the data transfer and yanked the device out. Got it. Go, I yelled. We sprinted toward the exit as alarms blared. The remaining pods burst open behind us, releasing more of them. I fired at the lights, plunging the room into chaos. Sparks rained from the ceiling as we climbed the stairs 2 at a time. At the top, the elevator doors opened, and standing there was Manson holding a remote. He pressed a button and the whole floor trembled. You can't outrun your own code, he said softly. Pain shot through my head, sharp, electric, my vision blurred. I dropped to one knee, clutching my temples as fragmented memories flashed through my mind. Wires, lab lights, surgeons talking, my heartbeat sinking to a monitor. Daniel, the woman shouted, shaking me, stay with me. I can't, I gasped, he's in my head. Manson smiled faintly, goodbye, Officer Ross. She screamed and fired blindly. The bullet hit the control panel beside him, sending sparks into his face. He fell back, clutching his eye. Move, she yelled, pulling me up. We ran down the corridor as explosions echoed behind us. The floor shook violently. I could barely see through the haze, but the emergency exit sign glowed faintly ahead. We pushed through the door into the cold night. The building behind us began to collapse. We ran until we reached the edge of the river, both of us gasping for air. The sky was pale gray, dawn breaking. I looked at the device in her hand. Did it finish? She nodded weakly. Everything's here, their files, the clones, your creation logs, it's enough to expose them all. I stared at the sunrise, the light reflecting off the water. Then we take it to the media, to the world. She hesitated. You really think they'll believe us? They own the police, the news, everything. I didn't answer. Deep down I wasn't sure anymore. I reached into my pocket to grab my badge, the same one I'd always carried, but it was gone. In its place was another one, slightly different. The number beneath my name had changed by a single digit. DR04. My blood ran cold. The woman saw my face pale. What's wrong? I looked at her slowly. They already replaced me. She shook her head. No, you're still you. But as I stared at my reflection in the river, I wasn't sure. My eyes glowed faintly, the same cold blue as the pods in that basement. I turned away from the water. We have to keep moving, I said quietly. If they can create one, they can create more. We can't let them finish the project. She nodded, clutching the device tighter. Then where do we go? Somewhere they can't track us. Behind us, sirens wailed faintly in the distance. We disappeared into the fog, leaving the city behind. But even as we ran, I could feel it, the faint pulse beneath my skin, mechanical and rhythmic, like a heart that didn't belong to me. Somewhere far away in a dark control room filled with monitors, Director Manson watched a live feed flicker to life. The screen showed two figures running through the mist. He smiled through the bandages on his face and whispered, "Perfect. Test complete. Activate phase 2. The rain poured harder that night, washing away every trace of calm left in me. The blue lights outside my apartment window flickered against the wall, but this time it wasn't from any patrol car I had called in. Someone else had, and I already knew who. When I stepped out, my landlord, Mr. Harris, stood there in his oversized coat, fake concern dripping from his voice. "I'm sorry, officer, I mean tenant," he said with a smirk. "But when a tenant refuses to pay rent and hides behind threats, I have no choice but to involve the police." I stared at him quietly. The man didn't know who he was dealing with. I'd been patient for months, watching his lies unfold, the illegal tenants he'd hidden, the fake rent receipts, even the money laundering trail that led to his brother's company. I had every bit of it on record. But this wasn't the time to strike, not yet. Moments later, a patrol car stopped at the gate. Two officers stepped out, young, fresh recruits from my own department. Harris rushed forward, pretending to be the victim. "That man refuses to leave, he's dangerous, he's pretending to be a cop." One of the officers glanced at me, recognition flickered in his eyes. "Sir, is that?" I gave him a subtle shake of my head. "Play along," my eyes said. He understood. They followed protocol, asking for ID, keeping the act alive. Harris looked smug, convinced he had one. "See, he's got nothing, you can take him now." But before he could finish, I slowly reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge. The gold shimmered under the streetlight, cold, undeniable authority. Detective Ryan Cole, Internal Affairs. The smile vanished from Harris's face. "You wanted to call the police," I said quietly, stepping closer. "Congratulations, the police are here." He stumbled backward, shaking his head. This is a mistake." "No," I cut him off, my voice calm but heavy. "The mistake was thinking you could hide your crimes under my roof." The younger officers turned serious now, stepping forward as I motioned to them. "Search the property," I ordered. "He's got illegal sublets in the basement and evidence in the office behind the stairs. Move." Harris's confidence crumbled. You can't just do this." "I already did," I said, showing him the warrant I'd signed hours ago. "You were under investigation long before you tried to evict me." The officers entered his office, and within minutes they came out with boxes, forged contracts, false leases, and cash bundles wrapped in plastic. Everything was right where I knew it would be. Harris fell to his knees. "Please, I didn't mean to." I knelt beside him, my voice low. "You used fear to control people, Harris. You threatened families, stole deposits, and hid behind fake smiles, but you picked the wrong person this time." He looked up, eyes wide and wet. "Who are you really?" I stood, letting the rain soak through my coat. "The man you shouldn't have lied to." The patrol car's door slammed as they took him away. His eyes met mine one last time, the same eyes that once looked at me with arrogance, now filled with dread. But as I turned back toward the building, I saw movement in the shadows near the window upstairs. Someone else had been watching. A figure quickly stepped back into the darkness, curtains falling shut. It wasn't over. Harris wasn't the only one hiding something. And for the first time that night, I realized I wasn't just cleaning up a corrupt landlord's mess. I had just stepped into something far deeper, something that even the police force itself might not want uncovered.